What was a life-changing mistake you made? Quitting a great job with huge advancements when I was 19 because a girl. The job took me out on the road for 2-3 weeks at a time and I didn't want to leave her for that long at the beginning of our relationship. Frick, that was dumb. It took me 8 years to make that much money again. And that girl dumped me after 5 months of dating. Oh man, that hurt to read. Heading home after a nice motorcycle ride on a Sunday evening. Decide on a whim to take a small 10-minute detour because it was one of the last days of the year with nice weather. Crashed into the side of a van with 80 km/h that didn't give me the right of way. Spent 12 days in intensive care. Ended up with persistent health problems and a reconstructed shoulder which left me partially disabled and unable to do sports, lift anything serious, etc. It was a nice ride though. I recommend motorcycles to no one. I have not known a ton of riders in my life, but of those I have known, a staggering percentage have suffered serious consequences including several deaths. Trying to foster unhealthy relationships with a girlfriend, friend, or even family member out of a fierce sense of loyalty despite it being toxic to my life. Yup, I realized I was accommodating all sorts of bulls in my life because I am loyal to a fault. The turning point was realizing I'm a grown but adult and letting people push and pull me wasn't noble. It was just keeping me from enjoying my life and choosing where to go with it. I'm still loyal and forgiving. I just don't let myself be taken advantage of or manipulated anymore. Not noticing my own behavior. Thinking I've become a better person and the realization of my mistakes has changed my life. Self-reflection is hard but important. Dating someone who was incredibly toxic for way too long. I don't regret it, though. It taught me a lot about what not to do and how to make sure I'm doing what's best for myself. Did it for 3 years. Got out last year. Haven't had a day full of worry, anxiety, or even feeling all that down since. Really makes you realize things weren't good. Hindsight, for ya. Not going to grab a bite with my dad just because I was too lazy to meet up with him there. A day later he killed himself. Also, not being strong enough to see my dad before being burned. Cremated sounds weird in my head. Will never be able to see him again and having missed my chance for a final goodbye kills me every time I have time to think by myself. Thank you for making this thread. Really needed to vent. That's not something you have to regret. I saw my wife twice after she died and I really wish I hadn't. Instead of remembering the vital lovely woman she was, I just have this image of her pale and lifeless burned into my brain. I wish I had the courage to go against everyone else's wishes and keep the casket closed. In my mid-20s I was dating and living a wonderful woman, but I was extremely immature and did a terrible job of keeping my life in order and keeping up decent employment. She gave me so many chances to get my crap together, but time and time again I would just be a useless lump and she eventually broke up with me and kicked me out. I had to go live with my parents. I completely changed after that. Video games became something I did after all my responsibilities were met, not something that kept me from them. I stopped smoking weed for a while so I could land a reliable job, even though the one I found ended up not drug testing me. I started saving money because I couldn't stand living with my parents. Eventually my ex and I reconnected and we eventually moved back in together. We ended up getting a new place that was ours. I had moved into her place, and things just kept getting better. We're now married and homeowners, and I'm waiting to hear about an even better job opportunity. It's a shame we had to come to that for me to get my crap together, but it changed my life. You're lucky it went the way it did because oftentimes you don't get that second chance. Glad it worked out for you, man. Now stay vigilant and keep up the good work. In the mid-2000s I used to work a call center job while finishing up uni. It was a startup fintech type job. People got promoted quickly and they paid above minimum wage. But I was naive and didn't realize how backstabby some people could be to get ahead. I carpooled with who I thought was a friend until he started secretly recording our conversations in the car to curry favor with my managers. Thinking I was safe, I was honest about my feelings about certain things at work, and sure enough he played the recordings to my bosses, and soon after I noticed a change in how I was being treated. They let me go with severance when I caught on to the fact that I was being asked to train my replacement. This led to about 10 months of unemployment with employment insurance and me finding a much better paying job. It was a blow, but I learned from it, and I'm glad I'm not stuck in what is ultimately a dead-end call center job, no matter how they spin job titles. Wow, what a snake. Not texting my boyfriend later that Thursday after an argument. I was mad and didn't want to speak to him. When I finally texted him on Saturday, he had already been dead for 24 hours. I wish I had told him I loved him. Everyone says it's not my fault, but I will never know if I had reached out earlier whether that might have been enough to stop him. I'm never ignoring someone I love because of a petty argument, ever again. My ex was threatening me to kill herself if I leave. She was proper toxic, but my innocent heart kept afraid of that. I just wanted to say beware of PPL who may use their kindness against you. Accepting the position I work in now. Biggest mistake I have ever made. I am more miserable than I have ever been in my entire life. In fact, frick 2019 as a whole. This year's can kiss my butt. I am done. You should just find something else and bail, dude. Don't buy into the idea that you'll be untouchable if you leave a job after only 6 months. That's a bad situation though, and I've been there. I remember using like all my vacation days taking crappy, random days off in the middle of the week to go on interviews that didn't go anywhere. When I was fresh out of school with a useless degree in creative writing and no experience, in the middle of the recession, I interviewed to be a marketing coordinator for a local fishing resort marina that was also headquarters for a few dozen vacation resorts along the west coast. Pay was great. Job perks included free travel and food accommodation at any of these resorts and a fairly free-form job in creating print and web ads, blog material, doing some market research and interviews. It sounded super fun. I aced the interviews and felt like a shoo-in based on how they were talking to me. I prepared for my life of luxury. They asked me to just throw together a quick ad concept. I was staying at my girlfriend's house when the request came in and she didn't have a WCS. So I threw something together quickly in Paint. Yes, Paint. Kind of assuming it didn't really matter since it was just a concept. It was terrible. They went silent. I didn't get the job. And I faced a difficult few years of racking up credit card debt, digging up freelance work, and mass applying to jobs that never contacted me back. I'm doing okay now, but I always wonder what things would be like if that had worked out. Jesus, should have at least installed GIMP or Inkscape. Not starting to take university serious until I failed and had to start a new course. Luckily I'm almost done with this one. I should have tried to get help for my mental health when I was suicidal and not now when I'm just messed up, because now I'm not sick enough to get help through the public system and I can't afford to get it through the private system. Not ever taking the time to sit down and think particularly hard about the career I wanted or how to realistically go about getting it before I went to college. 9 years and 1 liberal arts degree later, I'm not using said degree at all, and I'm working in an office at a job not at all related to what my degree is in, nor what I desire to do. I want to go back to school, but I need money. I need to go to school to do what I want to and to make money, but I need money to go back to school. Frick. Short explanation of the school system here. We have 6 grades in one school building and grade 7-9 in another building. Grade 1-6 is the same for everyone, while 7-9 has 2 different kinds of difficulties. Rather easy and pretty difficult. Nothing in between. To my story, as I finished the 6th grade, I was one of the lucky people to choose to which difficulty I was about to go in. I, being as incompetent as I am, choose the hard way, and, well, I didn't made it. I was planning on taking on the easier way anyway, but still, and because of that, people looked down on me, telling me that I'm way too stupid. I only failed because of 2 points, I think. To say it short, I regret taking the hard way. I know. Sounds probably stupid to some of you. Thank you for reading. In high school we had the easy math track and the hard math track for kids who wanted to major in a science in college. I'm good at math, but I took the easy track because it was less work and I didn't care too much for science. Guess who's working toward a science degree a decade later and had to take non-credit math classes to catch up? Even though you failed, you probably learned a lot. I went on a road trip but decided to drive in the rain. Hydroplaned and almost killed all of my friends. None of us were harmed but the car didn't make it. I'm glad you're all okay. Breaking up with a girl I dated in college. I thought it wasn't working. Turns out she found out she had some serious medical stuff going on that she just didn't want to burden me with. I thought she was just getting distant because she was disinterested. Found out years later. Turns out she actually really liked me and, for various reasons I won't go into here, we were perfect for one another according to some mutual friends. She's went on to get the medical stuff fixed managed. Unfortunately also fell into drugs and alcohol abuse and is no longer in a good place. Wish I'd have stayed and helped her through it all. There's no guarantee you could have helped her. She may have just drug you down with her. Don't what if yourself into a guilt trip. Behaving like an butthole during school and hardly ever finishing one. By the time I was 18 and I finally finished school, after I went to about 10 plus schools I couldn't care less about an education. But now that I'm almost 30 I feel like crap for not having a proper education, and I feel like I've missed out on a lot of basic information like geography and stuff about history because I switched schools a lot. It's all on the internet. Self-teach. Making up for lost time partying after a bad breakup, and as a result I blew a lot of opportunities that haven't materialized since. Yet. I was fooling around one day, showing off some kung fu kicks I'd learned, and I blew out my fibula. Over the next 10 years, the knee slowly deteriorated until I could barely walk without pain. I went from a skinny, fit physically active adventurous type, to an overweight schlub with diabetes. That butterfly effect is pretty deadly. Honestly, League of Legends. I synced in 5.5 years of my life into it since 2012. I started to care less about school and my health. All I wanted to do was come home and play LOL. I met some incredible people through it, but I ended up not being serious about a career until last year because I was such a slacker. I do still have a soft spot for it, but now I don't play as much and will get on every few months for an ARAM. There's better games out there. Telling how I felt to my best friend. She didn't feel the same way and from there it went badly mainly because of how I handled the situation. Lost one of the most important people in my life that day. I bought a Wii U. I had just gotten a credit card for the first time and thought I could pay it off in 2 months. Reasonably though, I could have but things didn't work out that way. Next month I had to get a new car battery and replace a few parts, eating up what should have gone to paying the rest off. Things got worse from there. I had to leave my job to be able to graduate college, then couldn't find a job for 8 months and living off scraps a month and having to put more and more on a credit card. It didn't get any better for a while. More things happened. I moved 3 times within a year, and now it's 4 years later. I'm just now starting to feel like I'm secure again. TLDR. Credit card debt is bad. Don't do it. LOL, imagine buying a freaking Wii U. Honestly, getting divorced. To be perfectly clear, I desperately wanted out of that marriage and I don't miss being married for 1 second. My ex-husband was as narcissistic, always with an eye for increasingly younger women. After we divorced, he married a woman 30 years younger than himself, slightly younger than our oldest child. He took me to the cleaners from heck during the divorce, and even now, more than a dozen years later, he's trying to wriggle off the hook for the balance of the property settlement that I generously allowed him to pay me monthly instead of in a lump sum. To this day I tell people that if I turn up dead, he's the first person they should look at, and if they do an episode of Dateline about it, insist on getting Keith Morrison, because I love him. If I could go back to when I finally decided to get out of that god-awful marriage, I would have done it completely differently. Instead of filing for divorce, I would have happily let him carry on with whoever his latest sweet young thing was and socked away money secretly like my life depended on it. Then, after 5 years, once our youngest turned 18, I would have simply disappeared, moved away, changed my name, never looked back. Now, obviously, there would have been flaws with that plan, but I can't imagine it would be any worse than what I've gone through. trusting the wrong person. I grew up very sheltered, naive, conservative, and too trusting of others. I was told by friends and acquaintances that I was too nice and that people would take advantage of that. Unfortunately, I had to learn this lesson the hard way. Fortunately, I made significant life changes to ensure that this wouldn't happen again. Taking out loans and credit cards. Unfortunately, due to rough times I had to, but I didn't take them until 5 years ago. I'm 38 now. Now I'm stuck in debt and wondering if I'll ever pay these fully. I forgot to take my contraceptive pill at the right time of day and suddenly I was pregnant with my first child, 9 months after meeting the first guy I'd dated since my first husband left 6 months previous to that. That was just over 7 years ago. My divorce came through 2 months after my son was born. I'm now married to the co-creator of our happy accident and we have a 2-year-old daughter as well. Made a mistake, but it gave me the perfect family. Going to university, perfectly capable of getting straight A's and perhaps even being doctorate material, but instead falling in with the wrong crowd, spending days getting high or drunk, and generally diva-bombing so badly that I got kicked out, expelled for not upping my grades after 2 warnings. I remember that when I came home, I was completely devastated and felt like I threw away a good opportunity because I could not practice basic self-control. I didn't know how I was gonna do it, but I decided I would not repeat this mistake. I had a very hard time dealing with homesickness in a town that easily got the most rain in the state. I was depressed constantly and, having been homeschooled through high school, I did not know how to deal with the temptations around me and I spun out of control. The most painful memory I have of it is when I bombed a test just because I didn't really care about passing and the prof wrote, "Are you even trying?" in red ink on it. Years later this still hurts so much to think about. Right now I'm in a good place. I'm married and have returned to college. I have a good job and a healthy group of friends. I learned a lot from this failure and, as awful as it was, the ordeal taught me how to say no to certain things, generally be a better and more considerate person, and accept that I am a person who can't use drugs or alcohol. Not getting a lump on my nut checked out by a doctor until it was almost too late. Simple fix until you let it go too long. Spent months in a hospital. Had enough chemo to kill a horse. Sir, don't be me. Get crap checked out. You're not too young to have something that will kill you. Marriage. It seemed like the normal thing to do, but the worst mistake I ever made in my life was giving the family court's jurisdiction over any part of my life. If I knew then what I know now, I never would have signed that document at the courthouse. Turning down a job interview because I was too anxious to call the employer back. That was a year ago. I haven't gotten any luck in job searching after that. I hear you. Phone calls fill me with anxiety and I have done the exact same thing. I didn't turn the light on in my kitchen when getting a drink of water. I walked into a stool and dislocated my knee. Due to Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, I was used to my knee dislocating, but this time when I relocated it I was still in intense pain. I was 18 and the hospital staff didn't believe I could handle the injury and pain I described without screaming, so they assumed I was exaggerating. It took 3 trips over 2 weeks for someone to x-ray me and fix my knee. I can't remember exactly what was wrong anymore. While on crutches a couple of days later, I'm walking down a ramp when 4 guys on skateboards for some reason push me down. My arms get stuck in my crutches which stayed upright and I injured points all over my body. EDS makes joints fragile. I couldn't walk or sit myself up. I was told that I could learn to walk after a bit of bed rest. Turns out that my tendons and ligaments are super loose and so my muscle was all that held my joints in place. Without my usual muscle, I started dislocating and subluxing every day. My body got more and more issues due to the constant injuries. I'm nearly 23 now and still need a wheelchair to get around. Muscle could help a lot, but it's hard to build when you get to this point. And now most parts of me are permanently damaged too. If I had just turned on my kitchen light that one night, none of this would have happened. Smoking weed at too young of an age. I became obsessed with it and made it a higher priority than anything else. I missed out on many academic possibilities and a completely different future due to my apathy. I feel ya. I smoked weed for the first time in 7th grade. I didn't smoke again until 8th grade, but I pretty much based my entire identity around it for the next 4 years. I was a bad butt teenager that smoked illegal drugs, pretty much stopped doing any extracurricular activities and started skipping school all the time to smoke weed in the woods behind the Blockbuster. Leaving my best relationship because I had fallen out of love. Little piece of advice for anyone in that situation. Unless the relationship is highly toxic and unhealthy. Mine wasn't. It was perfect and healthy as frick. Don't just leave purely because you feel like you lost love for them. Yeah, sometimes there are situations where the relationship would just be better off as a friendly one rather than romantic. But if it's going good, nothing bad is happening. An argument here and there is healthy BTW. A relationship without arguments is likely going to become unhealthy. Power through that crap. If you just give up, chances are, you're just gonna feel regret. I'm not trying to tell anyone how to live their lives. I'm just taking my experience and giving it to the lovely people of Reddit. I hope someone takes something from this. Thank you. Moved across the country to be with a girl. She ended the relationship within 2 months of me moving. But life changing might not have been in a bad way. I had terrible social anxiety and I was terribly shy. But then I was on my own with no support in a new place and I had to adapt. Now I'm a lot more confident and capable. Hung out with one of my best friends who became really psychotic and obsessed with me. For some reason. Took me almost 2 years to let go. It honestly twisted the natural trust I have in people. But luckily I am back with my real friends now. This could be a story I post but IDK which subreddit so. Crazy how people like that actually exist. Many people can go their entire lives not meeting truly crazy or manipulative people. It's sincerely such a freaking trip that people with such a lack of empathy and social awareness exists. This one is my own butterfly effect. I used low left my girlfriend every day at her home at 12:40 am. We worked until midnight in the same place. I decided one day to discuss the relation and the car in an empty street in front of her house. 2 robbers pointed a gun on my head, took my car and all of our belongings. I almost got shot. I live in a dangerous country, not US. After that, with this traumatizing experience, we decided to rent an apartment together. Not safe to keep that old routine. We left our parents' house. I purchased all my stolen items again, purchased a new car. To recover from the bad experience, 1 month after renting the app, we decided to do a little road trip. When packing I broke my ankle. Due to my condition, my butthole managers just rescheduled my vacation. I had a trip already planned and paid. Due to the extreme stress of that period, I just not gave a frick and took my vacation. That day an inner change occurred and started to lose the fear of leaving that job. So with that attitude, I got in the next to be fired line. It took almost 1 year, but I finally got fired. I decided to not looking for a job again, but instead start to work online with my own projects in a completely different field with zero experience. So now, 3 years later, I'm still working online, made more money than in that old job, did 2 international trips, keep living in that same apartment, still have my girlfriend. I won't lie, I'm still struggling a lot, but after that mistake, I finally took more control over my life. Maybe if I didn't get robbed that day, I would still be living with my parents and working in that job I hated and feeling miserable every day. Not me but a buddy of mine. Almost 10 years ago he worked as an assistant manager at Olive Garden working toward becoming a GM of his own restaurant. He stupidly starts having sex with one of the servers and he doesn't use a condom because she guilted him out of it saying she's on birth control. Of course, she gets pregnant soon after and they try to work it out and move in together. You already know what happens next. They start fighting and one of her friends tells upper management everything that's going on to stick it to my buddy. He ends up being asked to resign and he's been working crap job to crap job ever since while being a single dad, paying for almost everything kid related, and having his health go down the tubes because of all the stress. Knocking up the unemployable, pathologically lying Adderall addict was the worst decision of his life. Getting hung up on an ex. We dated and it ended amiably. We were in each other's orbit for a long time and I thought maybe I need to make another try, and tried being the friend who really showed care and kindness to see if there was a response. Her birthday came up and I bought a large, expensive cake for the party, and on the way there, realized how ridiculous I was being and decided to just love her like I did all my friends. I didn't try to insert myself into her conversations, sit by her at dinner, and because of that sat down next to an acquaintance I hadn't seen in some time. The acquaintance and I hit it off that night. We credit that party to us. Our oldest kid made 6 last week and our 10th wedding anniversary is in October. When I was saving to go to college, I was a painter. One day on the job, this woman at a house said her son was looking for someone exactly like me. Non-grad, hard worker, nice. She told me he was the CEO of X company. For reference, his latest contract involved a complete overhaul of the London Olympic Stadium ready for the 2012 Olympics. Needless to say, he's not a small fry. This guy came out of his way to talk to me. When I say out of his way, he freaking flew in from Germany. I didn't know that at the time. I also didn't know he was coming to see me. I just got told to go up to this office room and there he was behind this 12-foot mahogany desk. Had a lovely chat with him and he offered to take me on working directly under him, to be trained to take over in the coming years because he wanted to retire before 40 and he had no kids. What the frick did I say? I'm sorry, but X line of work has no interest to me. I really want to go down the animal care route. He respected that. But years later, living on my own, just getting by juggling my paid work and undergrad, I realized what a fricking mistake that was. I moved from the place I used to love and left everything I liked it behind. The plans I had didn't work and never built a B idea to move back there. Freaking up my scholarship and having to DRKR after my first 2 years of college. It worked out for the best cause. If I didn't go back home after failing out, I wouldn't have met my fiance. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.